Hello, welcome to Conversations. I'm Jim Blow, your host. Very pleased to have joining me today Michael Cox, the new police chief for Ann Arbor. Welcome to Conversations and welcome to Ann Arbor.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have the people that, the city and the people of the city want to get to know. How did you end up in the police area of interest? From a young child or at what point?
So yeah, I always wanted to help and help other, my fellow citizens, so to speak. And when I was very young, there was a police officer in the neighborhood that actually was a person of color that wasn't very many in the Boston area where I grew up. And so he was a police officer, and I respected him and thought that was a really great job, an opportunity to talk and help people in any way possible. So, you know, a little later on when I got a little older, had the opportunity, I took the exam, and 30 years later, I am still doing it. So
now, what kind of education was necessary as far as, high school and beyond, in the case of Boston and being able to become an officer?
Yeah, I think the minimum requirement was a high school diploma. Yeah. I mean, I obviously went to college, I went to grad school, I have a few degrees, but they ask for a minimum of a high school diploma, and usually nowadays a lot of people have usually are veterans and things of that nature. But back then, that's all they required.
Now, you mentioned Boston,
Yes.
of becoming an officer there. For how long were you in Boston in one form or another?
I'm originally from Boston area. I was born there, so to speak, and raised there. And I joined the police department in, goodness gracious, 1989, around January 1989. And I ended up leaving, actually retiring from the police department in July 1st. I mean,
what roles did you have as far as your background in the department, and how what led then to administration?
Oh, well, I mean, I was fortunate in a sense that I had a lot of opportunities, and I had a lot of very good jobs while I was in Boston, and I learned quite a bit from those, and I think I excelled pretty well in them because I got an opportunity to do something else. So I mean, I started off early on, working in the Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan areas of Boston, which is pretty much the higher crime rate when I was early on in my career, probably the first 5 years or so. Then I had an opportunity there to join the anti-gang violence unit, and I did that for quite a few years. And I took a promotion exam, got promoted, ended up working in internal affairs for many years, and then other portions of internal affairs, audit and review, the recruit investigation sections, and then I moved on to the intelligence unit, which is more like a regional intelligence center that we have nowadays, and where I ran the dignitary protection for the city with liaison with Secret Service. And then I was promoted to deputy superintendent, back in 2005, which is pretty high up in the command staff there.
And that's pretty much all administration at that point?
That's when it switched over to all administration, correct. And then I was in charge of forensics unit and developed some things there. And later on, I went back and I was in charge of the internal affairs unit as a deputy superintendent, and ran that for a few years. And then I was a zone commander, which is a large section of this, actually about the size of the Ann Arbor City of Police, where I ran that section for a bit. And then I was put in charge of the 911 center for the city of Boston, and ran that for
So you were in Boston during, you say, the terrorist issues related to the marathon as well as to 9/11. How was it within the department when you have those types of outside forces that you're trying to deal with?
Well, so I wasn't there for 9/11. That was earlier in my career, but I was there for the marathon bombing, as a matter of fact. And it was pretty horrific for the police department. But I will say that the men and women there, just like I think everywhere in this country, we come together and we find the foe that we need to defeat, and we work together to get it done. And that's what happened. You feel like you disappoint. You're here to serve and protect, and in that particular case, maybe we had slipped in some way, shape, or form. But the reality is, we did catch the individual, and I'm happy I participated in some way, shape, or form. And so we hope it never happens again. But I guess our goal is to make sure that we're prepared for anything that may happen.
You mentioned that you had retired after, what, close to 30 years.
Yes.
You talk about the different positions you had in a much larger urban area. Why Ann Arbor then? I mean, what led you going from a large urban to a much more, you could say, smaller college-focused community?
Well, you know, and I say use the word retired. I think I was retired all of maybe 10 days or so.
Okay.
It wasn't very long, but the reality is I wasn't ready to retire. I wanted to stay in policing, but you know, I wanted to do it in a different capacity. I mean, Boston's a big city. It's a little bigger police department, and sometimes in bigger places you have less hands-on, less opportunity to work with people in a way that you might like. You know, and in this capacity, I think I will certainly will have an opportunity, and I have been, you know, at least talking with the men and women that work for you, work with you, so to speak, on a daily basis, and have more of an impact that I did early on in my career, which I'll be quite honest, is more fun, you know, and so.
More the reason on why you got into it in the first place.
Exactly, you know, to make a difference, to feel as though you're making a difference, you know, in bigger organizations, the higher you go, sometimes you feel far removed from some of the things that happen, and in this place, I don't feel as though that's going to be the case.
Well, now, so for 10 days, so to speak, you'd been retired. What then attracted you to Ann Arbor? Did someone come to you and say, hey, this position is open, are you interested? Were you sort of looking at, you know, had you known much about Ann Arbor prior to it?
So I knew a little bit about Ann Arbor prior to this. My oldest son, Michael Jr., he went to school here, University of Michigan, and so he went here for 4 years and graduated. And so I was here quite often during that time period. And he actually ultimately played football for University of Michigan. So I was here for almost every game day for over 4 years here. And so, yes, I was familiar with the city, and you know, both me and my wife, you know, fell in love with the city back when he applied to colleges. When he was going through that process, you know, because this was the area we liked. It was a college town, but there's so many aspects to it that was good. You know, we enjoyed it, and so, you know, as I said, I was looking for something different in general, and there was the opportunity that came up, and I said, well, maybe I'll participate in this job opportunity when I saw it posted. So that's how I found out about it, and I'm very happy that I was able to participate in the process.
You mentioned that the ability to be closer to, you say, the people and to help in that. Were there other, you say, jobs that you also sort of looked at, or I guess I'm trying to get to is what made Ann Arbor that much special than anywhere else?
Well, you know, Ann Arbor is, you know, and I say this, you know, with all the love in the world. It's a town filled with passionate people. Everyone here loves it here, and they love being here, and they want to make sure that it stays. It stays a great town, and people are very passionate about it. And so, you can't help but be engaged in a town where everyone else is engaged. And so, in that, at this point in my career, it livens me up, so to speak. And I enjoy that. And I enjoy the challenge of that because. There's a lot of people here that are, again, very intelligent, and they know a lot about a lot of things. And so,
and they will voice that knowledge.
Yes, at any given time. Right. And so, the challenge of being able to engage the people that work here, live here, and that want to continue to make this community great. Will certainly keep me very busy, and that's what I want to be. I want to be involved in a city that cares and protect the people.
With being here now for pretty much almost 2 months.
Yeah.
What have you found similar between the Ann Arbor department and Boston?
Similar. Well, one is that the communities might be different size, but it's very similar as far as the population of the people that they serve. Boston has a lot of colleges and universities in a very small area for the most part. University of Michigan is a very large university in a very small area, and so the issues as far as colleges are concerned are very similar in a lot of ways. I don't see a lot different there, so to speak, and you know, the men and women here are very passionate, as like the other citizens, and they're very good at what they do.
Yeah.
The men and women in the police department that I left previously were very
I was
good
going to
at
say
that as
that
well. So.
obviously would be a major difference is size of the department.
The size, yes, the
How
size.
large is Boston? And how large is Ann Arbor, to give us a sense of how that is different?
So we're talking, you know, Boston would be, goodness, with Swan and about around 2,200.
Okay.
And Ann Arbor is, you know, around 160.
Yeah,
or
sounds
so.
right. Yeah.
Somewhere around there. So it's a little bit different in size, you know, but you know, this city doesn't lack anything,
Right,
so to speak.
right.
So it might not be the same size, but they certainly have all the same functions and try to do all the things that they
Right.
think is required.
I would think that in your first 2 months, part of what you had to do is meet people and get a sense of who in the community does what. You, as you mentioned, the university, and they have their own public safety department.
Yes.
Have you had an opportunity to sit down with their leadership or with them to get a
Yes,
sense of what,
yes,
okay,
I
and how
have.
we all work together?
Yes, and it's tremendous. You know, like I said, it's a community where everyone works together to make sure that everything runs smoothly, and I really appreciate that, and I value it, and hopefully I will continue to follow along the footsteps that created these tight partnerships over the years. But yeah, there's a lot of true professionals here in every way, in multiple departments, not just in policing, you know, whether it's public works or, you know, the school department. I mean, there's so many people here that are quite good at what they do, that I feel very lucky to be here and to be working with them as well. So.
Well, we can take a short break, come
Sure.
back and look at some of your both short-term and long-term goals.
Okay.
And what you hope to accomplish. Ask our viewers to stay with us. We'll be back in just a moment.
CTN Sports, bringing local sports to you.
Hello and welcome back to Conversations. I'm speaking today with the police chief for Ann Arbor, Michael Cox. And your background from Boston, you've been in Ann Arbor now for almost 2 months. Between now and the end of the year, have you established either in your mind or with other members of the department what your goals are by the end of 2019, let's say?
I mean, we have a few goals, absolutely. Yes, I would definitely say so. Again, I inherited a very good police department. There's no doubt about that. And so one of the goals is make sure we enhance on everything that we do well. And what we don't do well, we're going to try to bring that up as well. Some of the things that we'd like to do, going into the year is really community policing is something that I think that, we have a community engagement group that's been doing it for some time here in Ann Arbor. But to try to get the whole department, and other aspects of it to engage in it.
Now, when you say community policing, I guess, what do you mean? Because we've had, over the 30-plus years that we've been doing this show,
Yes.
Different forms of sort of policing. Community policing had sort of, I won't say precincts, but almost like precincts.
Yeah.
They just, I think, started back in the last month or two with having a couple dedicated police officers on bicycles in the downtown.
Yes.
Yeah. So what do you mean by that
What do I
term,
mean?
community policing?
Well, that's a good question because it is different, and the definition is different depending on where you're talking about. I think what I really mean, and what hopefully that we can come to the same conclusion about what we mean, is that for officers, the men and women that work in the police department, to engage the public and have conversations with them, really to solve the problems that might exist anywhere in the community. And when I say that, by an engagement, it's just to get to know people in a capacity other than just whether you're arresting someone or writing a ticket or something like that, and that's what I really mean, just for us to actively, no matter when we are, what time of day it is or what we're doing, being engaged with the public, in a good way,
Right.
in a not a traditional policing way, and that's what I think. If we do it in every aspect, I think we will probably find out that there's parts of policing that we're missing out on,
Right.
and that we could probably do a little better at, and we would also build some really strong bonds that way.
In looking at that, what experience can you bring from Boston? In other words, are there things that worked there that you want to at least discuss or potentially implement to achieve that goal?
Well, I remember a time when although community policing was used, we did not really participate in it very much. The officers thought that going to 911 calls that's policing.
Yeah.
That's what we do. And yes, that's a part of what you do, but the reality is you should be engaged with the public. You should have conversations with them because you need to hear from them what their needs are, so to speak. There's other things going on. Not everyone calls 911.
Right.
There's problems in neighborhoods that might not be addressed, outside of 911 unless you engage the public or hear from them what they might.
Being proactive before it becomes an
Absolutely.
issue or a problem.
Absolutely. And also there's an education component to it, whether we're explaining what we do as police officers or they're explaining what their perspective is. That educational component is vital, I think, in policing in general. We need to understand the public, and the public certainly needs to understand some things about policing. So, maybe, the disconnect that exists in some other parts of the country won't ever be here.
Right.
And if it exists here, maybe it'll go away a little bit.
You mentioned the communication, and before we talked a little bit about the relationship between the city and the university, both with public safety, but in many different ways. In Boston, you mentioned there were many different universities and colleges. Did most of them have their own public safety police force, or did you have to also provide, you could say, the day-to-day enforcement in the university? And how does that all work?
I would say virtually every college university had their own public safety policing. And I remember a time when that wasn't the case, but it has certainly changed throughout the country, and it's needed in the sense that, I don't think any city or town has enough resources to both police the city and town and police the campuses that exist in the colleges and universities around the town. So the public safety initiatives that exist in colleges need to be there, and then we need, as a police department, to make sure that we, stay involved and work with them, to make sure that we're all on the same page as how we respond to things and understand the needs, both from the town and from their perspective.
Have you gotten a sense yet of how Ann Arbor then interacts with other police departments within Washtenaw County or within Southeast Michigan? Because very seldom is a crime or those activities going to be controlled by a boundary of a city or anything like that.
Yeah, so we do have strong partnerships with a lot of the cities and towns that neighbor us. And I know we're quite active on quite a few of them, whether it's the SWAT team or some of the other things that go through the county.
Consolidation within
Absolutely,
the county, yeah.
Which is needed, and I'm very happy that we do participate, and it's very robust, and hopefully we'll continue that way, if not get larger. So, not only is Ann Arbor good, but regionally there's a lot of very good police departments that neighbor us, and that helps keep our our community safe as well. So strong partnerships with other law enforcement agencies, and continuing that and building on the collaboration is very important, and hopefully we'll continue that.
When we were talking about goals, looking more sort of the long term, 12 months to 2 years, let's say, have you had an opportunity to sort of get a sense of what is going on in the city now within the police department and things that you would like to either address or at least look at? Or, as you say, you came into a position that things were well organized and running well and maintain what we have?
Well, I mean, for me, it's fall, and it's the beginning of football season, right? And with the university, and so I'm the
student move in and all that.
Student move in and things of that nature. So, and I know that there's a few initiatives that exist previously. Certainly when students come back and as they're welcomed into the community, and I'm going to participate. I think next Thursday with I think University of Michigan, that both their police department and part of the school with welcoming the students back. But then there's football season and the public safety issues around that, and very large venue with very large crowds, and making sure people are safe. So me being
the first one being a night game, where that night games provide a different set of concerns.
Yeah, well, anything at night brings a different set of concerns than the daytime. But I'm sure the fans here know how to behave, and will continue to do that. But
when you came here for the games as a parent.
As a parent, yes. But most of the games, there was only one night game there, and it was the first night game against Notre Dame, I think, when I was here. So
it was,
that was I was here for that, and that was the only one that I actually took part in. But I'm sure for me, it's a learning aspect. So being an outsider, one of the good things I get to do is hear about what we currently do and just basically evaluate it. Is this the time are we doing everything right? Should we continue this way? Or should we change up? Things of that nature. And that's what's occurring right now as everyone's taking me through, all the steps that we do and the things that we do. It's just really a reevaluation of everything that we do. Like, is it still relevant for today? Can we tweak it a little bit and make it better? And these are the kind of questions that I'm asking, and getting the officers, the men and women that actually work here, to evaluate it with me along the way. And I think a lot of good comes from that.
I would agree. Have you, or do you see yourself having, an opportunity to, once in a while, go out on the streets, or go out with the public? Do you ride in a car with other officers, or is that too intimidating?
Well, right now I've just been meeting so many different people in the neighborhoods, but absolutely, that is going to be a part of my job. That is a part of my job, in a sense of both riding with the officers and also being out in the community, because it's hard to get the officers to engage in the kind of community policing I'm talking about if I'm not engaging in the community policing. And so hopefully I'll be able to walk the walk as well as talk the talk regarding this. And so right now it's just really getting an opportunity.
You mentioned the walk and the walk. You started the week of Art Fair.
Yes.
Did you get a chance to walk the Art Fair?
I did. That was I walked the Art Fair the very first day, and for some reason, and then shame on me, I thought that the Art Fair was very where a few artists from the neighborhood would come together and put their
That's how it began.
Oh, really? Yeah. Would put their art
down on South U.
Stuff that they had in the garage.
Well,
and
not
come
quite
out
that, but
When I came and I said, "Wow, this is elaborate, and these are wonderful artists that it was a very, eye-opening experience. And I was like, wow, this is a tremendous art fair here. And, and then the weather, and then people told me about, don't worry, it's going to be really bad weather for this week. I was like, well, how can you predict that? It's summertime, it's not wintertime. So, and it was. And it was. So, and I got caught in the rain a little bit too there with some others. But, hopefully in the future, and the weather will spare us. But it's a tremendous art fair, and I'm happy I got to participate.
And in many ways, between examples, the art fair, which means you most likely missed the summer festival, which is in June, but many activities throughout the year which bring crowds in from out of town, from out of state, as well as activities that maybe concentrate the people of the university, of the city of Ann Arbor, that become part of the culture and the understanding of what Ann Arbor is all about.
And again, it just reinforced that this was the right decision to be in the right place in the right time. Right. This is a wonderful town with a lot of events and a lot of activities that are, the community activities that are tremendous. One of the things that they talked about, I went to the school town there with the youth. I'm sorry, the name eludes me, but they've been doing it for 40 years. Where the safety town with the kids that come in at kindergarten, and they teach them safety skills, whether it's from riding their bikes to stranger danger and things of that nature, and that's been going on for 40 years. And so many of the people that live here remember that their experience, and I understand. Wow, now that is community policing, right? I'm saying, and that's been going on for 40 years. So I said, wow, this is a big deal, So from community policing to the art fairs to the football games to some of the other festivals that go on here, it's a very vibrant town.
Being new, when will your family be able to come join you?
Right. Well, so
it had to be difficult leaving the city you'd been all your life.
Well, leaving the city was not that part was not as difficult, but as I have to sell a home, as my wife has to come here and she's a physician and find employment, that part's a little bit more difficult because you want everybody here with you, sort of, to enjoy, just as I'm enjoying this or what have you. And that's more difficult. It's a little stressful, just worried about, some of those things. But that'll take care of itself fairly shortly. But in the meantime, I'm enjoying my time. And actually, it might be a blessing because with all the events and things that I'm doing, if they were here, I wouldn't see them very much right now. So it's working out, I'd say.
Well, I want to officially welcome you to Ann Arbor and welcome you and thank you for joining us today in Conversations.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I want to thank your viewers for joining us. Look forward to your continued support here on Conversations.